The two most alcoholic, cold, slop-eating, redneck, most adrenaline-loving countries on earth have beef. I'm here today to squash it. And I'm not talking Hesburger. I'm not talking Vakoshno Toshka. No, I'm talking Europe's most overlooked, most bitter rivalry. Finland versus Russia. It's 1939. A certain Georgian man called Stalin has his eyes on this bit of land by St. Petersburg. Bro, imagine if we had that warm water port. When Finland rejected the USSR, poor heartbroken Joseph lost his shit and sent about 1.5 million comrades to annex the whole country and establish the Soviet Republic of Finland. On paper, this should have been light work for the commies. The USSR's population and economy were both about 45 times larger than Finland's. We all know the USSR was having monumental victories around this time. They did literally sacrifice 27 million dudes to win World War II for us after all, which we were just so grateful for. If you want to know how it feels to win a world war, hear me out. Supremacy World War III is a goated free online player versus player strategy game. And with the way the world is going right now, it might be handy for you to get some experience leading a country in World War III. With tensions rising in the real world, bro, I know you want to test out your country's military might under your control. I definitely do. I get so invested. I got long-term military strategies going, which you can completely modify, from forging global alliances to simply stocking up on the optimal arsenal. Supremacy World War III lets you compete against up to 99 other players in real time. Multiple weeks-long conflicts between real countries. You can just quickly hop on whenever, PC or mobile, and these guys have been kind enough to let me choose a special gift for y'all. So for a limited time only, if you go hit the link in description, you'll receive a free elite main battle tank, which is worth 25 quid. Go redeem your prize now. Anyway, just before the war is when I want to focus on. 1939. Finland was nowhere near the white person Wakanda we know today. It was one of the least developed nations in Europe at the time, especially military-wise. They had no tanks, no planes, no big guns. The majority of Finns lived rurally, just skiing around hunting for food. This is what led them to obviously losing the war. That's right, while Stalin's starving gulag slaves were trundling through the snowy wasteland north of St. Petersburg, east of Helsinki, slowly dragging around their cumbersome, heavy and noisy machinery, getting all their tanks stuck in the trees, meter-deep snow and semi-frozen lakes. Worst of all, standing out like sore thumbs in the snow with their brown uniforms and loud equipment, the Finns destroyed these guys. 1/3 of the 1.5 million Soviet soldiers never made it back home, whereas Finnish casualties was somehow within the 5-figure range. Why? Well, the Finns simply hunted down the Soviets the same way they hunted down reindeer, using methods they had been perfecting since they arrived at the Baltic Sea 4,000 years ago from Siberia. The Finns dressed up in this all-white drip, blending into the surroundings seamlessly, gliding around on these silent, stealthy skis in small groups of friends, or even alone, camping nomadically, moving unpredictably, basically just like they were all on a boys' winter hunting trip. And they had the gear to match, hunting rifles and vodka. Yep, the Finns over a couple wars were able to completely stave off a Soviet occupation, only losing a bit of territory. And a fraction of the men the USSR lost by sneakily sniping and Molotov cocktailing the shit out of these massive USSR battalions. Simo Haiha, aka the White Death, is the most famous Finnish soldier from these wars. He is statistically the most lethal sniper the world has ever seen. In less than 100 days, he wiped out over 700 Soviets. And he was simply a Finnish farmer who'd been hunting his entire life. Which is the same story for all the Finnish soldiers. They employed tactics only someone like themselves would know. For example, chewing snow to hide their breath and all the steam. Anyway, the Soviets were completely humiliated, and the Finns had 3 slivers of their land robbed, annexed. In the big 2025, they're still salty about it. Like Hesburger chips, saltiest things you'll ever eat in your life. Historically, having Putin as your neighbor is not ideal. And Russia's most recent special military operation, definitely not a war, by the way, yeah, not a war at all, bro, was sold as a Russian Z battle against NATO expansion. And regardless of what you think, it's clear the Ukraine war had the opposite effect. Not only did it make life in Russia extremely difficult and shit, sanctions, economic collapse, conscription, families receiving meat grinders as compensation for their sons who were sent to war with no military training at all. The special military operation also led to the most significant NATO expansion in years. Countless countries cozied up to NATO: Sweden, Moldova, Georgia, Bosnia, North Macedonia, etc, etc. Unfortunately, the special military operation has only strengthened woke Westerners' grip on Europe. Most significantly, Finland, who in 2023 joined NATO, which as a result more than doubled NATO's pre-existing border with Russia and pushed NATO much closer to Russia. Good job, mate. Congratulations. And now with Russian drones and even Soviet-era spy planes looming over NATO's skies, the beef is sizzling away hotter than ever. Those Hesburger patties are crisping up under all this pressure, man. And if you want it explained in brain rot terms, IShowSpeed visited Finland this year, and these goddamn redneck Finns genuinely dressed him up in a Russian military uniform and set him on fire. And that's what I'm gonna fix now. Russia versus Finland. I've got one main category I want to focus on to see who's really worthy of the W in this bitter rivalry. Alcohol. First off, Finland. Now it's well known that Finns are the alcoholic heavyweights of their region, which says a lot. Vodka is so ingrained into Finnish society, it's actually kind of what they're known for as a nation.
Ei, udaina ei kukaan sumalainen. Ei, Venäjä voi. Ei ne puta kulla kaskulotti. Kulla voi.
No one really associates Nokia with Finland, despite it being literally from a town called Nokia in Finland. But if I say Finlandia, hey, that's as Finnish as it gets. Finland produces something like 50 million liters of alcohol every year. That's like 2 liters for every single human in the Nordic countries. Mainly Finlandia vodka and long drink, which are these really tasty mixer drinks. You cannot even taste the alcohol in them one bit. Long drink must have led to so many blacked out Finns I can't even imagine. And then obviously think about how much alcohol Finland imports too. It's a phenomenal feat of alcoholism. It's insane. I think Finns' affinity for hard spirits, obviously it comes from the weather and the misery of living this far north, but also I think it comes from their food. You have to be drunk to eat this shit, man. I'm not gonna lie, the only good food I ate the whole time I was in Finland was Russian food. Look, I know this might be a bit controversial. I low-key think Russian food is S tier, I can't lie. But all the Slavs and post-Soviet people will genuinely start World War III in the comments if I start calling specific food items Russian. We invented it. No, we invented it. No, we invented it, bro. What I will say is it blows Finnish food out of the fucking water. And this explains Finns' deep dependency on alcohol to make it through meals. Unfortunately, I have to take some points off for Finland in the alcohol category, man. The Nordic countries have some of the most evil laws in Europe when it comes to alcohol consumption. All the Nordics, apart from Denmark, because Danes are the only Nordic people who are lightweight and boring enough to be trusted with unrestricted alcohol, by the way, the rest of us have to deal with Gestapo-level alcohol laws. Being an alcoholic in a Nordic country is like being a prisoner in a cell. Every time I go back to my ancestral land of Sweden, I think to myself, wow, this would actually be the best fucking place on earth if it wasn't for the alcohol restrictions. Countries like Finland are almost perfect, genuinely. So clean, advanced, efficient, rich, progressive. I mean, the Nordics literally have the world's lowest reoffending rate for criminals because their prisons are solely based on rehabilitation instead of punishment. They let murderers serving life sentences out into nature so they can swim in the lake and then drive themselves to and back from university. Bruh. Compare that to Russia, where they simply send petty criminals out as cannon fodder to be mowed down on the front lines, like all the other hundreds of thousands of dudes who've just been sent out into Ukraine with no training. If you haven't gathered already, this is Russia's traditional all-time method of war. It's exactly what they were doing in Finland back then. Of course, they don't just send criminals, they'll send pretty much any guy Putin can get his hands on.
seems as though they are going to put him on the front lines. Not getting really any training because, unfortunately, when you're taught in a different language and you don't understand the language, how are you really getting taught? You're not. He feels like he's being thrown to the wolves right now.
Anyway, Finland's alcohol restrictions are, in all fairness, way better than Sweden, Iceland and Norway's, but they're still stupid. In normal shops, you can basically only buy long drink and only before 9 p.m. To buy stronger alcohol than long drink, you need to go to the government alco shop. It's like the alcohol dispensary, and they aren't open on weekends. You can't legally drink anything stronger than
22%
until you're 20, and some nightclubs can even be 22 plus, occasionally even 24 plus. And in these nightclubs and pubs, you can't buy pints of alcohol. Instead, you get a smaller 0.4 litre serving, which you could potentially be dropping like 10 euros plus on. It's insane, but in all fairness, it does make Finland's government a lot of money. They really highly taxed the one thing Finns can't live without. It's kind of genius, and they use this money to provide really nice public services to the Finnish public. The nicest train I've ever ridden on in my entire life was Helsinki to Tampere. The conductor heard that me and my friends were foreign, and he put us in a private room on the train, like a private suite. As a Brit, this blew my mind, and it would probably blow a Russian's mind too, because their trains are a bit Soviet still. I mean, back in the day, the USSR were the goats of rail. It's just, you know, since then it hasn't modernized much, let's say. But let's look back to the main question at hand: alcohol. And in terms of representing Finland's op, look, I'm not really equipped to talk about Russian culture. It's just a mythical far out land of Adidas, sunflower seeds and potatoes, which I have very limited experience of. So I'm instead gonna hand over to my comrade, a true expert in this category, my Russian friend nfkrz.
Блядь, пиздец, пиздец.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. Pretty easy actually, just by being born in Russia. Eastern Europe in general and Russia in particular is pretty notorious for its heavy alcohol consumption. Even the first president of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, was an absolute legend when it came to getting wasted and could barely stand straight for most of the time. So why do Russians drink so much? I mean, it's pretty obvious in my opinion, just take a look around. When you don't have any color or sunlight in your city for like half of the year, when there's always some kind of war going on and there's corruption and injustice everywhere in society, it is no wonder why people start going heavy on the vodka. And even though right now I drink way less than I did back in the day, I did have my share of drunk Russian moments. Like when I was 19 years old, I got so drunk with my friends at my parents' apartment that I ended up absolutely obliterating my parents' toilet by falling on it while I was drunk. I also managed to smash a mirror in the bathroom and also rip the curtains off of the wall in one of the rooms. Why? Well, the thing is that a lot of us Russians, we don't really get drunk to have a little buzz or to have a little bit of fun. No, it's about getting as fucked up as humanly possible, outdrinking all of your friends and proving that you're the man, no matter the consequences. Russians really like to lose control when they're drinking, and maybe that's just because we feel like we're being controlled too much in our daily life, with all this censorship and whatnot, I don't know. And I know if you guys want to hear from me that I started drinking beer and smoking at the age of 12 like every Russian does, but I actually didn't because I was a good mama's boy. However, in my school by grade 7 we already had kids that were drinking and bragging about it in class. They were also doing like and shit like that, but that's a whole nother story. Russians love to drink, and when you meet a Russian person who says that he doesn't like to do it, it's actually a little bit sus. You know, kinda how like Vladimir Putin is known to never drink alcohol. Which honestly, only based off of that information, I'm already having massive doubts about his character, and I'm already questioning if he's, you know, the rightful person to represent Russia. The thing is, drinking culture in Russia is definitely changing these days, especially in big cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg and so on. Russians now enjoy drinking cocktails and craft beers and sitting in nice sophisticated bars and not just downing vodka in an alleyway somewhere, laying in their own filth. And even in my hometown of Chelyabinsk, which is known to be the city of gopniks and real tough Russian men, the attitudes are also changing because in the city you now actually have things to do apart from just getting wasted. This is the reason why alcoholism is so widespread in Russia in the first place. It's to depress depression. There's an endless amount of dead-end, nowhere towns and villages in this country where absolutely nothing is happening, there's nothing to do and nowhere to go, and nothing is being built for the youth, and there is nothing to do in your free time apart from drinking. Now I feel like when it comes to being drunk, Russian people are a lot like the British in a sense, because they like to drink a lot, they get pretty loud, they get pretty annoying, and can also be kinda hostile. My hometown of Chelyabinsk basically turns into a GTA online server after midnight, where among normal people just being outside, you will have a lot of like gopniks, ex-criminals, and just wannabe thugs, who are literally just going outside for the purpose of getting drunk and trying to find somebody to fight. Walking outside in Chelyabinsk in the hood on a Friday night genuinely feels like King Von himself is out there somewhere looking for you. Like there's always gonna be some idiot that's gonna try to start shit with you, and the most dangerous spots to avoid at night are usually the liquor stores. Now you see, what's funny is that in order to try to stop Russians from drinking, Russia actually has a curfew. Shops in Russia cannot legally sell alcohol after 11 p.m, but of course there are ways around it, and people usually either go to corner stores that just illegally sell you alcohol, or people go to these bars where they give you like a opened bottle, and that's like a legal loophole that lets them sell it to you. And oh lord, the characters that usually gather outside these places at night in Russia are absolutely ungodly. This is the place you go to get tested on your knowledge of Russian prison rules and lore. This is the place you go to get Basically, my point is, if you're ever in Chelyabinsk and you're not trying to get slimed, maybe it's best to avoid these points of interest. If you want to relax, you can just go to a regular bar at night, which will be much more chill. It will have craft beer, IPAs and all that. You'll be surrounded by nice hip young people, and also there's gonna be a DJ or something. And yes, Russia is actually pretty big on consuming and making their own craft beer, so there are ways to have a nice drink and avoid trouble in Russia. However, at the end of the day, it does not hurt to remember that you're in a country in which a lot of men are repressing a lot of feelings and emotions and tend to kind of act out when drunk. All the most traditional based Russian men turn super gay when they're drunk. This is classic. And you also need to remember that you're in a country where you have like tons of ex-criminals that got freed because they went to fight in Ukraine walking around. And you also have a lot of ex-soldiers with PTSD walking around and so on. Just try to pick your battles and drink in the cool spots with the cool Russians. You know, the IPA drinking hipster types. Don't hang out with the I'm gonna stab you because you don't like Vladimir Putin types. Get it? Also, another good reason to avoid these shady midnight liquor stores in Russia is because they actually sometimes sell fake alcohol that like literally makes people go blind when you drink it. And I'm not coming up with this shit because I've heard a lot of stories like this. Because when you're a true Russian alcoholic that is down bad, there is nothing that you won't drink. So when drinking in Russia, please observe your surroundings and don't let your guard down too much. Yes, drunk people can be aggressive and unpredictable in pretty much any country, but when it comes to Russia, from my personal experience, it feels like Russia is the absolute world leader when it comes to annoying people trying to start shit with you on a night out. Watch yourself. Na zdrowie.
So who wins, Finland or Russia? Both countries are so goated in this field, and many other categories too. Both nations have S-tier swear words, for example. Perkele!
Perkele, siihen koske, saatana.
Сука, блядь!
Те остались наверху, заебись вообще, блядь. Да ты чё?
Both nations have goated regional flags. Both nations are gold medalists at oppressing native people, but I think overall, in a lot of ways, Finland is like the OP Russia. They're freezing cold, alcoholic, shitbox driving, heavy machinery operating, slop eating, forest dwelling people. As well, just instead of being third world country level poor, they are some of the richest people in Europe, whilst at the same time paying high taxes. So the country just has endless money to spend on cool, super high-tech shit like trains. I'm actually surprised there's less fweebs. I don't know why we don't have more fweebs, honestly, man. But maybe it has something to do with those stupid alcohol laws. I've been saying this my whole life. Look, if the Nordic countries stopped restricting alcohol, allowed everyone to stay out late, didn't have these insane age restrictions, etc., they would be the best place on planet Earth. However, unfortunately, for now, looks like I'm just gonna have to go with the middle ground for our winner. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna be giving the W to Estonia.
Estonia. The country is voraciously digital. The first to offer nationwide online voting in nearly every government service.
stardisignaal on antud, alanud on võistluse esimene etapp, mis kuulub selle ala juurde, Eesti ujumise juurde. Ära tuleb juua
Roosna-Alliku vallas Valasti külas, kus üks metskits tuli ühe pere ukse taha.
Hakkasin koera ketti vahetama, et vana kett oli juba kulunud ja panin uue.
Thanks for watching, guys. As always, if you like this video, hit any of these buttons right here, down here, any of these buttons, slap them. It will really help me out. But more importantly, my massive YouTube goal is to beat Netanyahu 10x in subscriber count. So please, guys, help me ratio this guy. Sub up now. Also, thank you to my Patreons. If you want to help fund my videos and also get your name right here, right now, then go sign up. Don't forget the best free online game, Supremacy World War 3, though. If you're watching right now, it means you obviously care a lot about countries battling it out, and if you want to try your hand at strategizing and conquering other countries against real player opposition, then Supremacy World War 3 is the game for you. Hit the link in description for a free elite main battle tank, which is a special gift I personally picked out. It's only valid for a limited time though, so go hop on it now.